Welcome back to Kowalski.
No worries.
Welcome back to Kowalski Analysis, everyone. Episode 115. This is the show where we dive deep into the issues that most people avoid, uncovering truth, challenging the status quo, and exploring what it really means to live a life aligned with God's design. I have a great guest tonight. Welcome in Jame Barrett.
How you guys doing?
Awesome, man. I was introduced to you, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks ago. Somebody sent me your IG account, and I thought, man, I got to get this guy on the show and pick his brain.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad they did that.
Yeah, man. Let me tell everybody who you are so they know. So Jame, not to be confused with James, he was born in Chicago, Illinois, and he's a multifaceted entrepreneur, independent artist, and a public figure whose journey has been anything but conventional. After moving to Los Angeles in 2017, he established himself as a well-respected artist, blending various genres and building a strong presence in the music industry. His versatility as an artist is evident in his expansive catalog, which continues to grow and reach diverse audiences. Beyond music, Jame is a dedicated businessman with a keen eye for real estate. He owns multiple real estate companies in California, leveraging his entrepreneurial spirit to build a successful portfolio in short-term rentals and property management. His ability to scale business from the ground up is a testament to his ambition and resilience. At the core of James' life is his family. He's a proud husband to 5 wives and a father to 11 children and counting. In 2024, he and his family stepped into the public eye as advocates for polygamy, launching the Barretts, a social media page documenting their unique family dynamic. And the page has grown rapidly, attracting widespread attention and sparking conversations around love, relationship, and non-traditional family structures. Academically, Jame holds a degree in psychology, which has given him a deep understanding of human behavior, insight that he applies both in business and in navigating complex relationship dynamics. He attended Columbia College and the College of DuPage, where he honed his skills before venturing into his diverse career paths. As his influence grows, Jame continues to push boundaries, whether in music, business, or family life, cementing his place as a dynamic force in every arena he steps into. That's impressive, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Just to get started, I just was thinking about it. I'm like, I messaged you before before we did this. I was just curious if you were a Christian or not, because I was like, I could determine some of the questions I ask you. But most men that'll pursue polygyny, usually they're like religious. They're non-religious. Like if you're not a Christian, I was always under the impression like, why even get married at all? Because it would be just easier to be a player, right? Like you don't have any responsibility. So what motivated you to actually get married to more than one woman, but not just more than one, 5?
Well, it has a little bit to do with how society sets up marriage. Pretty much the way that the world looks at marriage is that woman belongs with that man and they're together. And that's at the highest level of the relationship. I would prefer people refer to the mother of my children as my wives over them being a baby mama or his kids' moms. And if they're living with me, those are my wives, regardless on if the government wants to call them that. It's about the respect of my women.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's a lot of self-esteem for the kids too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So I can't wait. I got so many questions for you. So did you always know that you were wired for polygamy? And when did you, because you were raised in a Christian home, so it wasn't something that I'm sure was taught to you that this is okay. So how did you come upon this?
Well, I mean, I really didn't know about polygamy. I mean, I was raised in a home that was Christian. I used to go to church every Sunday, believe it or not, up until I was about 14. So I didn't know anything about this. This is something that I felt inside. Even in high school, I would date girls, and while I was dating girls, I would love the girl I was with. Like even my high school sweetheart, I would love her, but I had feelings for other girls, and I would wonder what that was. Was that lust or was that natural? And even after high school, I continued on, and I still felt that same way. So I kind of discovered polygamy or polygyny recently as a term, and I'm like, that's me.
Yeah. I think there's so many men that can relate to what you just said, and they think that there's something wrong with them. I just have problems with lust, and I need to be faithful to this woman. I did this myself. I don't know if you know much of my story, but I was a big player before I met the Lord, and became a Christian, and I just, I knew that monogamy only was what they taught. So I just said, okay, well, I guess I'm going to be monogamous now. And I thought I would meet a woman that would make sense to me. I mean, because honestly, if this is God's design, then surely there has to be a woman out there that's going to make this feel natural, that I'm not going to feel like there's probably a good chance I'm going to cheat on her, or want to cheat at least. Right. Like,
Right.
so I stayed single for almost 2 decades and sexless the majority of that time. Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. 6-year stretch, 4-year stretch, like I made a couple mistakes in between, but
Yeah.
it was about 18 years of abstinence. And in my prime of my life, and before that, I had sex with hundreds of women. So I could get girls. Girls were easy for me. But I was so committed to being obedient to God that I'm like, I don't want sexual sin or whatever. But no one ever told me this. And I just feel like there's a lot of men out there that think exactly what you do. There are men that are wired for polygamy. There are men that are wired for variety, let's just say, because otherwise, why are so many married men on dating apps? Why are married men looking at pornography? That's variety.
Right. Exactly what that is.
But you did it ethically, which I really respect, and I want to dive into, because it really is the only ethical form of non-monogamy that God allows, is polygyny. Mm-hmm. So how did you, like, okay, you got married in 2011. How old are you?
I'm 30.
30. Okay. So you were married at 17.
No. I wasn't married in 2011. I met her in high school.
Okay. Gotcha. So you met her in high school. Were you still under the monogamy, mindset at that point?
Yeah.
So you discovered polygyny at some point, or just maybe, I don't even know, but you have some feelings for other women. How do you bring that up to her? And then what was that like?
Well, the situation for me wasn't, it wasn't, I didn't have a good moral compass early on. So obviously I was a young man trying to figure out everything. So I was obviously cheating in the beginning. So I'd known my first 2 wives around the same time. So in 2011, I met my first wife, Cam. And then in 2011, I also met my second wife, Jess. Yeah. So I was seeing both of them at the same time.
Yes.
Jess actually ended up having my first child. So, and then I ended up marrying Cam, and we continued on that path of me just cheating around.
Yeah.
And the other wives came along through that path. And then I decided to be more honest and be more upfront. And I told them, like, hey, look, you guys all know about each other. This is what it is. Let's all come together, and let's all live together and do this the right way, so that I'm not splitting time with my children, that one woman is not getting more from me than another. And so that's kind of how we got this together.
I love it.
Started off just cheating, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where a lot of people probably start, or at least if they have the temptation to cheat. And, the beauty of polygyny is, you're right. There's no lie. There's no deceit, there's actually more security for the women, because how often does a person leave the first wife for a newer model?
Yep.
And that happens all the time. So I look at a polygyny as like a condo van versus a 2-seater. You got right. You got a minivan. Everybody can get in if you want. As long as you.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So how did she receive that? Either one of them, because they knew about each other. But then one of the issues I run into with women that are opposed to this, I think a lot of it is more about what people think. It's not so much the jealousy, because I think women share men all the time. We see it all the time. Mm-hmm. They don't care if your status is high enough. They really don't care. But it's what society tell that, girl, you're getting abused or whatever. So how did that go over with them?
I think that with my first wife, Cam, that's what she cared about. She cared about how her family was going to look at her. She's like, they already know you cheated on me. And then I've known her since we were in high school. We went to prom together. And so they're like, oh, how are they going to look at me now? Like, being okay with this. And so I felt like her family was like a big deal for her. And she's really close to her family too. So it was just one of those things that I think that was hard for her. And her reaction was not like a good reaction. It was tough. It was a lot of like, I don't want to do this. It's like better out of sight, out of mind. Like, you can do whatever you want, but why should we live together? Like, why do we have to do this? And she had every right to kind of feel that way because of everything she was taught. She was taught from a little girl that, like, if a man loves you, he's going to only be with you and he's going to treat you like this, right? And I was trying to introduce her to something different, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Disney really screwed us.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
Seriously.
and it screwed women too because it's unrealistic and it's not the way God set things up. Men are wired for variety. And I believe God did that because he knew that there would be an imbalance of women who want to be married versus men who are capable of marriage.
Exactly. I 100% agree with that. I
So
can't disagree with that at all.
think about your 5 wives. I mean, at least a couple of them probably would not be able to find a good godly or just a good man that would stick around, not cheat on them, provide for them, have the father and all the things that you're doing for your ladies. The numbers just don't support that. There's just not enough men to go around for all the women that want to be married. And I think that is why God gave us that desire for variety. But the problem is when you jam monogamy only in there, the only way to express your desire is like a degenerate way. You have to go out and cheat or lie and all that stuff. So, the crazy thing is, like you said, I think a lot of women may prefer that, right? Because, like you said, out of sight, out of mind. Tell me what's the difference been like since you were living that way, separate houses, lying, whatever, and then you brought it together, and what difference does that make?
Well, I mean, the lying, it feels heavier.
Yeah,
So when I had them all separated, it definitely felt just heavy. Like I was just adding more stress onto my life. And I also felt like I wasn't connecting with my kids. Like I had kids with these other women, and the kids that lived with me had a lot of attention, a lot of love. They always woke up to see dad. But the kids that weren't with me, it was tough because they didn't see dad that much. They may see dad twice a week. So I felt like that was heavy on me as a father because, my father was absent a little bit. So I just feel like that messed with me. And then compared to just them being home, all in the same home, I think that it's just a little bit better just because it's elevated me to be a better man.
mm,
So 5 women in the house, the spotlight is always on you. You have to always be on. You have to be a leader. You have to be a lot of things. And 11 kids too, it just doesn't turn off. So it elevated me in so many ways. It made me be a truth teller in more ways than just my relationship, just in general. And
yeah,
so I think I've grown from this situation more than anything.
yeah. I have heard that as a common theme amongst men who practice this is that if this is for anybody who wants to become the best version of themselves because it forces you to level up.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
So let me get into some of more of the like nitty gritty. So, well, first let me ask you this before I ask this next question. What's motivated you to come out with your story like you are? Because I see you doing these lives every Friday, and what is your motivation behind that? Why are you wanting to? Because I'm sure you're getting negative feedback. You're getting criticism from people.
Oh, most definitely. I think it's just the fact that, I was just going to do it because we had a unique life. I didn't think for beyond that.
Yeah,
But once we started doing it, I started realizing all of these things. And then it started messing with my ladies. It started messing with me. And we were like, wow, we don't have a place to go to talk about this. Or when we were struggling with our internal relationship problems, we're like, we don't have anywhere to go. Like, who do we talk to? We can't talk to our families. Our families don't understand. We were all raised religious, Christian or Catholic. And like, who do we go to? And so I was like, you know what? Like, we have a purpose now. Like
yes,
we have a purpose. We need to speak for those who haven't come out. We have DMs filled with people being like, thank you for doing this.
yeah.
I'm polygamous, I'm polygynous. I want to, thank you. Cause I would have never stood up,
I
you
love
know?
it. I love it. That's good. So you want to help people. I suspect that that's what it was. So let's talk about okay, because I'm only married to one woman right now. If God wants to give me an additional, great. I'm definitely would welcome her in, but I also am trying to be very careful with who I select because I don't want to invite chaos into my home. Right now, I have a really good thing with my wife, but I also see the practical benefits to it too. Just I believe it's nation building. I believe that getting multiple skill sets under the same roof is not going to be a bad thing, for
No.
especially if the man's got a big vision. Um, how do you keep yourself out of legal problems? Because so is it? I don't know how strict California is. It's a pretty liberal state. The
Mhm.
weird thing is if I just said I was polyamorous, no problem. Nobody cares about that, right? Like Like when you say polygyny, for some reason, it's almost like a spiritual thing. It's like the enemy because he hates it. Because
Yeah.
it really points to me. It points to God. Because anything else is good. Polygamy, for the most part, as long as the girl gets hurt, she can have her fun too. But polygyny, where it's like, hold on, people hate it. Even beta men hate it. Women, rebellious women, Jezebel spirit. I mean, a lot of people hate it. So, how do you avoid like any problems? Like, because I've been concerned about drawing attention to myself because I create so much content. I'm like, they might come after me, because I'm sure the government doesn't want this to get out. So, how do you have any like strategies for how to avoid some of that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just like I'm still legally married to just Cam, and I that's just what it is. There's nothing against the law saying that we all can't live together, and I can't do anything else about my four other wives at the moment.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for a place for families like ours. I understand that polygyny has a bad history, with some of those people using it for those reasons, but so does monogamy. Monogamy has a bad history too. It's just that the West romanticized monogamy, and
Yes.
so they're running with that. But
Yes.
we could do the same thing for polygamy and polygyny.
Which is honestly the reason I wanted to bring you in and other guys like you is because there's just been a lot of bad examples of
Yeah.
you got all the cults and the Mormons and different people like that. It's like people just need to see some good examples. Like you got 5 kids, looks like 11 kids, and your kids are in sports and they look like they're pretty well rounded, and like that's a good example, right? When you see, like you said, monogamy, just look around, it's a crap show. It's like broken.
50-50.
Yeah, 50% divorce rate. 1 in 3 children are being raised in fatherless homes. That number is supposed to double by 2030. It's a mess. I think monogamy works when you have God in a society. When you remove God, you go back to human nature. Human nature
Yes.
is men like variety and women are hypergamous. They want to date the best man. They want to date
Yep.
and do the best. Like
Absolutely.
Andrew Tate said, is no women go to a Chris Brown concert and say, "Oh, he's going to be so faithful." Like they don't care, right? His status is that high.
Yes, that's true. That's what it is, and we didn't choose the rules.
Yeah.
For me, I say this a lot. I choose nature. It's natural for me to feel this way. I don't think I'm hurting anybody. I think it's natural for my women to be all together in this home. I think that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
I love it. I love it. What do I want to ask you next? So, what did you have any like initial internal or external stigmas or taboos that you had to overcome in order to embrace it?
Externally, we're still working on it, right? Because everything that's happening, how everybody's judging us and stuff like that. Internally, it's just, I was more so thinking that things were going to be a certain way. Like I thought it was going to be easy bringing all the girls here in the house. I'm like, oh, it's going to be fun. There's no more drama. They're not going to be where you at. But there's new problems and it's actually harder. So I think that internally I was actually dealing with that in the very beginning, especially just trying to be a better man.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense. Which is why I think a lot of men don't opt for this because it is much harder.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, why would I marry 3 women if I could sleep with dozens or hundreds and with no responsibility? So I could see how that would be tougher. What are some of the biggest challenges with it? Is it just the emotional having to be there for 5 different women and their emotional ups and downs, or what would you say is the biggest challenge? Because it's got to be great with the kids. Though. You can go out at night anytime you want.
Yeah.
You got a lot of benefits. Women only have to make dinner once or twice a week. I mean, there's probably a lot of practical things. But what is it for you that is the biggest challenge? Is it that?
I mean, you have to have great leadership skills and you have to be a good manager of people in general. And I think that when this is your life, it never turns off. And not having someone to go to or a place to go to, I think that that's a challenge because you're dealing with 5 different personalities and then you got the 11 kids. So I feel like the biggest challenge is just going to be day-to-day problems, whether it's like the girls having issues or the kids having issues, you just having to be the person that everyone goes to all the time, no matter what. And that's just your responsibility as a man. You have to deal with it. You just got to take it and move on.
Yeah.
You know,
How many kids do you want to have?
I don't have a cap, man. Like to say that I do would be crazy. Right now I have 3 on the way. So, oh,
Wow.
4 on the way. 4, sorry.
Keep
Twins.
track. That's amazing. I love it. All right. Well, that's good. So you already got 11. You got 4 on the way. That'll be 15.
Yeah.
That's fine. You got a football
Yep.
team.
Exactly.
So what did you say to? Okay, so once you already had the 2, like walk me through the 5th one. You meet her out somewhere. How do you tell her? Now, hey, by the way, I got 4 wives at home, or how did that work? I'm sure some of the guys in the coaching group that run are going to be very interested in how to pull that off.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you this. You just can't, first of all, you shouldn't be straight up about everything, especially when something's taboo. I know I shouldn't say that, but it's the truth. Like, you don't go and, be like, and tell somebody like, hey, I'm on my period, so we can't sleep together tonight. Or, it's just the situation. You kind of have to like ease them into it. But what I told her was like, I told her the truth, but I didn't tell her the whole truth. So I just basically told her like, hey, I have 3 baby mamas like right now. So like I have kids with 3 different women. And so this is the situation. And she was like, okay, all right. And so she got with me and she asked, how much do I see them? I'm like, I see them often. I spend a lot of time with them. And so I kind of went down that path.
Mhm.
Remember, again, I was in the beginning, I was lying. So I was obviously lying to them, but I brought them together because of the fact that like, I'm like, oh, this is a friend, blah, blah, blah. And then it kind of just got to the point where I had to just tell everybody. It got to the point where they were starting to catch on, and I just was like, hey, look, this is what it is.
That's good, man. So I've heard different things from different guys in the group. One guy has got 2 wives, and he had started out. He met them on dating apps, and he started out by. It was just basically like, you do whatever you want, I'll do whatever I want, kind of ENM, ethical. Well, it wasn't. Yeah, it was like agreed upon non-monogamy. But then he was raised Christian, and he, discovered the biblical truth around it, and basically, that they're not allowed to do whatever they want. Like they're exclusive to him, which is honestly just, women hate to say that, but it really goes back to biology. I mean, most women, if they have a good man, they're not really desiring other men. They're not even thinking about other men. Men aren't like that. We look, if you walk into a room full of beautiful women, in general, a man, he wants to sleep with all of them. A woman wants the best one, right? So it is very different. So what misconceptions did you have about polygyny before living it? What's been the most surprising?
I keep going back to the same thing about honestly how hard it is. I thought that it was going to be like easy. I just did. I just was like, you know what? It has to be, right? No more lying, no more this, and all of these girls are together, but it's just not. It's not easy in the sense of being a man. You just have to elevate. And so I think that was the hardest thing. And also it makes you question yourself as a person too, because you have to be good for all these girls and their personalities. You have to, they all have different personalities. And when those personalities clash, what do? Right. When they're bickering.
A typical conflict resolution.
Yeah, exactly.
Your household.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, how do you do it? Do you have let's say there's a conflict. Do you sit them both down? Is there any process worked out? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, we actually have meetings. Sorry, say that again.
No, just how do you avoid factions and triangulation?
Yeah, so we have meetings every Sunday, and these meetings can last from 2 hours to like 8 hours. We sit down on the couch, all 6 of us. We'll have the kids go to their rooms, and we'll go away. I start the meeting off usually saying, do we have any personal gripes, anything that we need to talk about on a personal level? And so we do that weekly. There might be some weeks we miss, but we try to have a meeting every Sunday, once a week, just because it's good for communication. Everything is about transparency. My women are more passive aggressive, so you don't get a lot of like yelling at each other. The worst that you'll get is like, oh, why'd you let the kids out? And they're like, well, I told you to do it. Like, that's like the most that you'll get. But most of the time, my women, if they're mad at each other, they'll walk past each other without saying anything. And they'll send me paragraphs like, oh, she did this and she did that, but it's never really like actual like fighting. I don't have aggressive women.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
I would never choose any. So those people who usually are like, oh my God, if I was there, I would be fighting. I mean, I wouldn't have you as my wife.
Right.
You know,
That's frame. And that's why you got 5, because you don't tolerate crap.
exactly.
Women love that. Makes them feel safe. So I would love to see that agenda. If you have an agenda for those family meetings, I'd love to take a look at that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Some of the guys in the program really might be interested in that. So how, and this might be unpopular or not politically correct to ask, but like, how similar is managing those 5 women? Because, I was just thinking, when you're like, she did this or she did that, I was like, how similar is it to like managing your children?
Yeah. I felt, it's so funny that you said that. When I was looking at the questions, I'm like, that's exactly how I feel. Sometimes you feel like the only adult in the house. And I know that doesn't sound politically correct, but I just feel like those are some things that I say to the women. I'm like, it's steps. It's the children, it's you guys, and then it's me,
Yes.
and that's just what it is,
Yeah.
and it is like that. It is like that. Sometimes you just have to talk to them in that way, not as children, but as in a way that you would try to talk to children so they both feel satisfied leaving from the conflict.
How do your wives bond with each other?
They bond naturally. I didn't necessarily force anything. I mean, I said we're all living here, but I didn't say like you had to be friends with her, or you had to be friends. But I'm like, for the sake of the kids, you guys should communicate. You guys should communicate for the sake of the running the household, like who's cooking, who's doing this, who's doing that. But they all started bonding on their own, right? There's no way you can force this. You can't force a bond. And so my recommendation is to make sure that your woman is not picking the girl that you bring in your family, right? Because she might do something that's based on how she feels rather than what's good for the whole household, right? I would never let any of my women choose a wife for me, because it's just not
Right.
not going to work out for you. They might be best friends, but she might bring something in your household that causes chaos.
Sure. Or she might not bring in somebody that's great for you because of who knows what.
Yeah.
Right. She might be jealous. Maybe the girl's pretty, whatever. It could be a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think in the Bible, you see a lot of the wives brought women to their husbands. Almost always, I think, in every case that you see multiple wives, it was always the women bringing them in. And I do think women can recruit better for polygyny better than a man, because, women are they're always suspect, right? They're like, oh yeah, your wife's okay with this, right? I'm sure she is, right? Like they wouldn't, but if the wife recruits, that's a little different. But I can see how, so what is your vetting process like? Like, how do you choose? Was it just basically like something that you feel like that you have a certain list of qualities that you're looking for, or is it maybe a skill set that you didn't have that you're like, I'd really like a girl go with money? Or how did you choose your wives?
The first thing I look for is the aggression level. Like that's like every woman, and it is something that I just feel, right. Like I have conversations and I pick brains, and I do things naturally. It's not conscious, but I do things naturally to see the aggression level of a woman that I'm talking to, and that's just on any date or any day. And so if their aggression level is high, they're automatically disqualified for me. So I need women who are going to compliment me, right? I'm already an aggressive person. Like I'm aggressive in business, I'm aggressive with anything that I do, and so I need a woman who's going to compliment me and be soft, so that when I leave this in those aggressive environments, I can come home to a softer person to balance me out.
Right. So you want a woman that's inner feminine.
Yes, fully.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I don't see how that probably wouldn't work if you had a woman that was more masculine in a situation like this. I could see how that would cause a lot of problems. So next question. What's the most offensive or ignorant assumption people make about your family, and how do you handle it?
Honestly, it's just the cult thing. Like, it's crazy because I have kids here. My kids are normal. They have a lot of friends. We're big in the community. Like, we run a football chapter, in the community, and so a lot of people know us. And so in real life, like, no one really talks bad about us, and everybody loves our kids. So just to call us a cult, and like, oh, especially when they bring in our kids and say like, oh, these poor kids, they're gonna need therapy and all of this stuff. It just really sucks. I think it's offensive because we do a lot. Like, we have nannies and we have tutors and we send them to good schools and we do a lot for our children. And it's just like, to say that they're part of a cult and to make them feel like they're less than or part of some brainwashed system is disheartening.
Now, do they get negative like feedback at school too? Because that's one of the things people say is, like, oh, the kids aren't going to do as good. I think personally, I mean, I haven't lived this, but if you have more than one mother in the house, how can that be a bad thing? Because we're just going to get kids
Exactly.
more love. So
Exactly.
so how do you deal with how do they deal with? Do you have it like, don't respond, bring it to me? I mean, do the teachers know, the principals know, and they just kind of help you navigate that, or do you have any feedback for anybody that might be in a similar situation?
Well, the children, their friends, they'll poke fun, especially the middle school kids. They'll poke fun and be like, "Oh, I got five moms." Like the video that they had that went super viral, 10 million views. They were just like, they would always just pass the car and say, "I have five moms," but it's more so poking fun, like kids just laughing and messing around.
Right.
My kids have a lot of friends. They're football players, so they got their whole football team, and they know everybody at the schools. So it's not like that. My kids, I'm actually more concerned with my kids doing the bullying. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Like, my little ones at the park are always, their parents are always coming up to me and being like, your kids are being crazy right now. So I'm not concerned with my kids. They're very confident kids.
That's
But when it comes to the teachers, the elementary school teachers are a little weird.
mhm.
They know what's going, the schools know what's going on, but the elementary school teachers are weird. They kind of get mad and short tempered and be like, oh, the biological mom has to come, but they do that to kind of just be a little difficult to our family because they don't like the structure, you
Sure.
know. So other than that, I mean, I don't think that there's that many issues going on.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
So, what would you say? What would your advice be for a man whose wife is resistant to polygyny, but he feels it's in his path?
I mean, how resistant is she? Resistant where she's like, if you do it, I'm gone.
I'd love to talk about that. Actually, I'd like to talk about both. Let's say she lays down an ultimatum. What do you do? Because in my mind, well, I mean, here's where it gets sticky. Because if you made the vows to forsake all others and to, all that, then you're kind of stuck because you made them in ignorance. You didn't know that, like most Christians or just anybody that watch this, they didn't know that polygyny was an option. So then they learned the truth and they're like, oh crap, now you can get. It's one of the things that we teach in our program is a dissolution of vows, where you basically can write something out and have her sign it, so she agrees to let you out of the vows because you made them in ignorance. But biblically, I don't think she has really a right to leave. And women, biblically, they can only divorce a man. Uh, well, a man has a biblical, like a lawful way out of a divorce for three reasons: death, abandonment, the woman abandons him, or she's unfaithful. A woman does not have any reasons to leave a man except for death and maybe abandonment, but not unfaithfulness. There's adultery has nothing to do with a married man. It's
Wow.
only if a married woman is involved is it considered adultery according to the Bible. Which honestly is because polygyny, because God, otherwise every man in the Bible that had more than one wife was an adulterer, and that's not, or was anybody called that or punished for it. And a lot of the great men of God had multiple wives. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to talk about, okay, let's say she threw down the gauntlet and she said, if you do this, I'm out. My thought is, if you haven't made the vows to forsake all others, you'd be like, well, then you can leave, but if you date or sleep with somebody else or marry someone else, you're an adulterer. Which,
Mhm.
according to the Bible, there's some serious punishments involved there. It says you don't inherit the kingdom. Now,
Yeah.
so I would personally tell a man, it's your biblical right. It doesn't mean you should do it just because it's your biblical right. But I would not let a woman dictate to me my future and try to hang that over my head, because in all honesty, she'll probably leave at some point anyway. If you do that, if you succumb to her request, she's probably going to lose respect for you and bounce in maybe not right away, but in time.
Yeah, absolutely. I would never ever conform to anything that my woman would say in that way. My woman cannot give me any ultimatums. And if she does, it's going to be this way, or we're not going to have a relationship anymore. Right. So if that was the case, she said, and honestly, my first wife attempted to give me an ultimatum. Like, if you do this, if we're doing this, then I'm not going to stay. And I'm like, then don't stay, because this is what I'm doing.
Right.
This is what I'm doing. This is where I'm at. And quite frankly, like you said, it made her respect me more.
Yeah.
Imagine if I didn't. Imagine if I tried to, like, okay, fine, honey, it's okay, I'm gonna suck up. And then now she's like, yeah, she's happy for the moment. She's like, phew, that was close. I almost lost him. And she's okay. But later down the line, like you said, it's going to be a situation where she'll probably leave anyway.
Yeah.
She'll probably leave anyway.
Yeah, she got you off your boundary. Like, you set a boundary, and then she got you to move it because of her. And that's where men get screwed. And not only will she respect you, but you tell me if I'm right. I think that she probably was even more physically attracted to you afterward, because that's what I've noticed. Is like, it's something about that, right? That it's frame. It's called frame in the red pill, and that's you have strong frame, I can tell. But did that improve or take away from the sex life?
No, it absolutely improved. Right away, the initial reaction was like, okay, I thought it was more so just her being like, oh, she's trying to keep me. She's like, oh, like, maybe if I give him good enough sex, he's not gonna do this.
Yes.
That was my initial reaction. But it makes total sense on why she was doing all of that.
Yeah, it's called competition anxiety in red pill, where I don't know if you've ever heard the term, but I've heard it many times. It says the sex stops after you get married. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, the reason it stops is because there's no competition anxiety. The woman, she was sexually attracted to you before marriage, so she's trying to secure you, and she's physically attracted to you because she's, this is all unconscious. They don't know why they're doing it.
Yeah.
But then once they secure you, and there's no threat of competition, there's never no threat of Jane bringing another woman in. Now all of a sudden they don't want to have sex with you anymore. It goes away. It's like, that's something very broken with the monogamy-only system. People, that they need to recognize and say, that should not be. The sex is supposed to start when you get married, not stop. So what is the issue? Why is that happening? And I believe it's exactly what we just talked about.
Yeah, I definitely believe in competition anxiety. Like, all my women, like, if they haven't had sex and they haven't had attention long enough, they will try harder. And that's why I say, like, to guys who are monogamous, when I'm debating in the comments or something, I'm like, your wife is more likely to leave you than one of my wives are to leave me. Yes. Why? Because they barely feel like they have me. Right. Like, your woman sees you every day. She's gonna get quicker, tired of you quicker, tired of your sex quicker than mine will. That's just what it is. And I would just want to add to this, and this might sound bad, but, like, again, because we're not coming from a place of religion, but my wives and I agreed in the beginning that they are my 5 wives, but I'm also allowed, if there is a situation outside of the home, I am also allowed to have sex with a woman outside of the home. So I feel like that also creates that competition anxiety that you were talking about. Now, do I recommend it to people who are doing this for God? Probably not. But for me, that is something that is discussed, and I'm not a cheater, because we make sure that we talked about this before. And to cheat, that would mean that you're doing something outside of the agreed terms in the beginning.
Wow, dude. That's, and there's so many men out there that they're in sexless marriages. They can't even get their one wife to have sex with them. And you got 5, and then you're able to go out. So, like, I'm really curious about the path you took to get from where a lot of guys. So I see a lot of guys that have the potential that a guy like you has, right? They can get girls, and they're players, and they cheat or whatever, like you said. But you've got to the point where you're now being honest about it, about who you are, and you've got the freedom to not have to lie or hide it, but all the steps that you must have gone through to get to that point, man. Like, because most men never leave. They never leave Egypt. They're just stuck there, lying, deceiving, trying to change themselves. And I was like, yeah, that if you do anything, if you could teach people that process of getting from, no more being a player and a cheater. This is what you have to do. How you come clean, how you have that conversation. I don't know. That might be something there for you.
Yeah, yeah. I think I want to spread that. It for me, the core of it is the honesty,
Yeah.
right? It's the honesty in not caring what this woman is going to do
Yes.
or how she's going to react. That's what it is. Because I think that I was just so strong in believing in what I was doing that I just didn't care. And my women threatened with a bunch of different things. They said a bunch of different stuff, and they gave me cold shoulders at different times, and depending on what I was doing, it was hard. It was hard. Like that 2 years was tough.
Yeah, they call them shit tests in Red Pill. So like they were shit testing you, and you just kept passing. So they they ghost you for 3 days. You don't hear from them, call, and then or maybe longer, and then you're not. I can't pick up the phone because if I call her, I lost. So you'd have to wait. And then guess what? They break at some point. They call you, text you, I miss you, whatever, and you're like, right. So it's a series of shit tests. I love that. It's something that we teach in the coaching program is being fearless but not careless. You can let a woman know how much you love her. Look, I'd be heartbroken if you left. I love you. I want to spend my life with you. I'm still going. I'm still doing this. Like, I'd hate for you to leave. I really want you to come, but I'm going with or without you. Like that. That is what you're saying, and that's something that I think is really powerful.
Exactly.
Yeah, man. Well, dude, I love this. I love getting to know you. I look forward to bringing you in to talk to the guys next. Yeah. But any closing thoughts for anybody out there, any men considering this? What would you tell them?
Well, I would tell them that you got to have good leadership skills. You got to have good management skills, and you don't have to have money. That's a misconception that a lot of people have. A woman, say if you want to live a minimalistic life, you want to live on a farm and you want to live off the land, like a woman will follow you and multiple women will follow you if they feel protected, provided for, and they feel like they can trust your leadership. You do not have to have money for this. And that is a big, big misconception.
I saw you shared a reel of mine where I said that you have to be a good manager, right?
Yes, exactly. And I believe you were 100% spot on. And I just want guys to know that because they have this confusion. I had these women before the money, right? Before business started going well, I had these women and they were in love and they were with me, right? It just, the money, maybe it enhanced everything, but it didn't make them love me more. Or it didn't make them stay in this relationship.
It probably even helped you get the bag on some level because a woman is made to be a helpmate, right? So a man gets a purpose from God, and then God sends him a helpmate or more than one. And so if your mission or vision from God can be achieved faster or better with 2 wives or 3 wives or 5 wives, then why wouldn't you? Because it's about the mission, right? Exactly. It's about getting the thing done. So yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, money can probably make life a little bit more comfortable, but it's not necessary because, one thing I push back on people is if you read Proverbs 31, a chapter which talks about a good wife, a good woman, I'm like, you're telling me that it wouldn't help me to have 3 of these girls in my house because they were all hustlers. They're all getting up early, making stuff. They all had businesses going. And it was like, yeah, I'd love to have 5 of those in my house. Why wouldn't I?
Right.
Yeah, man.
Right. And I feel the same way. And, my women are educated, they all have college degrees. And so like, it's not a situation where they're, it just sucks that people have this misconception. They're not from this small town in Wyoming. They're either from LA or Chicago. That's it. They're from major cities. They got degrees. They got regular educations. These women are very normal.
Yeah. Well, that takes some strong masculine presence to do that. That's what my wife told me. She said, you are like the ultimate alpha. Yeah. I said, why? She goes, well, number one, you didn't, at the time I just got done working for a nonprofit for a year. So I didn't pay myself. So I had no money, right? And I'm like, polygyny, this is what I'm doing. So it was all the, and she's like, you really got strong frame because you have to in order to pull this off. But the thing is, I think it can be taught. Like you probably have it naturally. You got this stubbornness. Like I got too much respect for myself to let you tell me what to do. That's how I feel. Almost like I got a chip on my shoulder with it. But I think it can be taught. It's like you have to sometimes, and this is what I think you probably could agree with, is sometimes you got to push all your chips in, right? You got to be like willing to lose it, you know?
Yes.
And that because you're never going to get it without that test. And most men are so afraid to lose that woman that they succumb. But if you want to push your chips in and be like, I'm scared, I don't want to lose her. I really, especially when a woman tests you, that seems like that's when you want her the most, right? Because she's pushing back, and then you push your chips in. It's the only way. Everybody has to do it, but it's so hard to do in the moment.
Yeah, it is. And you do have to risk it. You just got to be strong, man. Like, honestly, I mean, I think more and more men should come out and be polygynous, and instead of just cheating on their wives or cheating on their girlfriends. So this is good that we're doing this.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I just want to encourage you to keep putting yourself out there because you're just normalizing it. And at some point, the scales are going to tip, and it's not going to be this weird thing anymore. People, it'll be weird to be monogamy only at some point. I think
Exactly.
No, this is the way it's wired. This is the way it was, for thousands of years, and this is the way it'll be again, I believe. So, man, I just want to encourage you, and thank you for your time, bro.
Thank you. I appreciate